We are here today to talk to you about the 2024 documentary on the life and music of Luther Vandross, Luther Never Too Much, and how people constantly speculated about Luther's personal business, yeah, that kind of personal business, including his good friend Patti LaBelle. We'll tell you all about what happened in the documentary and the controversy that arose after the documentary aired.
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation via Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber.
I try to do songs that I think I can do differently.
Let me just say about Superstar, an amazing rendition of this song that was, done by the Carpenters, as they talked about.
Man, we're going to record Superstar. I said, the Carpenters?
And it is completely different. The melody is somewhat the same, but they rearranged the song.
And oh, so far away.
And oh, so far away.
The song that the Carpenters did is slow in the beginning, and then when they get to the part where it's "Don't you remember you told me you love me, baby," like the song sort of revamps. It starts off slow, and I'm like, yes, Karen, sing, Karen.
Long ago.
And then you get to this part where all of a sudden the horns come out and they start a really up-tempo song, and it's like, "Don't you remember you told me you love me, baby." Ba-da-da-da. Like, what? Okay, and back then I loved that version, but because I did hear that version before I ever heard Superstar.
Luther had heard Superstar in the early 70s.
But then when you hear Luther slow it down and give it to us with that butter and that gravy and just
Long ago.
Oh man, there is just no comparison. And for me, this is just the definitive version of the Superstar song.
You told me you love me, baby.
But he could take any song and rearrange it and just make it sound like gold.
There's one point in the song where he goes, "Keep it right there."
The thing is, Luther knew how to deliver a song. He knew how to deliver a song.
Take it easy. Keep it right there. Keep it right there.
And he kept that part of the song in, keep it right there, play it easy.
Don't jazz this thing up. Keep it right there. Play it easy. That's right.
When you listen to that song and experience it and you're, thinking about love and everything else.
When you grinding inside them guts and then it's like, keep it right there. That's what
I was trying to say that in a nice, in a mindful and demure sort of way. Like, it takes on a different meaning. We are not talking about, slowing it down and breaking it down, and maybe we are, but it means something
and
completely
then what he
different.
talked about, right, like he knew about leaving space, right? I say this all the time, gotta let it breathe, you know what I'm saying? You can't, but you listen to a lot of these new artists and stuff, this, like, if there's a pause in the record, they're like, I gotta fill it up with something, and they throw in some crazy ad libs and stuff. Like, there's this idea of, the so-called ebbs and flows, right? You got a valley, right? You in the valley, you waiting. You may be in the desert, and here come the water, right? That you don't just have water, more water. It's just like, you
drink the water, and then you take a big old exhale after you finish. Right?
Yeah.
You need that space.
Right, and you need to be thirsty, right? You can't just fill every single space of every single song. Like,
and he understood that, and it was just natural, because I don't feel like he was just like, okay, now I'm going to rest for this many bars, and then I'm going to, I just think he went with the feeling and was in touch with that, Yeah,
and then he was talking about, basically, it was live, the way they recorded it, right? Keep it right there means they are, in whatever year this was, still playing live during the recording, right? Even though you had the ability more to cut together different takes, right? So oh, we could just play the music and then he come back and do the vocals over it. This was, no, we're doing it all at the same time.
He's going to turn his vocal off when the song gets mixed. No, he just left it right there.
And what's so crazy too is how nowadays people will punch in the whole song. Like they will literally sing one line or do one line at a time, or the song, the music in the song, the instruments are built by, you know, I may not be able to play, but I could play these 3 notes and then I could make it sound right and correct the note and whatever. And then you wind up with a finished product at the end. And that's not even including what we hear with the AI stuff now, right?
Yeah.
You know,
A chair is still a chair.
So, House is Not a Home is one of those Burt Bacharach songs from back in the day, right? And, you know, Dionne Warwick is just like, yeah, you tore up my song, basically. So I just, it's yours now. Yeah.
You have just given me the definitive version of that song.
When you watch these, it's just like, you remember how many of these iconic songs that these artists have, right? Because they're just not always at the front of my mind like that.
But a chair is still a chair. What he's singing about? Furniture in this motherfucking sound great.
And then I'm like, ooh, I like that one. Ooh, I like that one. Ooh, I like that one. I remember that one, you know?
Well, and what I want to know is how many people didn't know that the songs that you consider to be Luther songs were actually remakes?
Oh,
because,
yeah.
you know, you have Superstar, a remake. You have A House Is Not a Home, a remake. Like, he could take these songs and just make them his own. When you think of Superstar, do you think of the Carpenters? When you think of A House Is Not a Home, do you think of Dionne Warwick? Probably not.
Maybe, depending on what time era.
Your era, maybe, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
They had to give you that signature Luther at the end. But the thing I always think about with Luther and when he's delivering a song is like, what did you do, Luther? You know, you're saying I'm sorry and I can't imagine you not being my baby. What did you do wrong, bro? Like, what had happened? Because it's really storytelling through music at its finest. It makes me think about how he feels in this moment, and part of it is this sympathy, and you don't even care whether or not he deserved the treatment that he got. You just feel sorry because of the way that he's emoting the songs.
I'm still looking for that meaningful other person in my life.
I have to say, this is the part of the documentary
That
where
you cried?
I did cry the first time. And I started feeling very sad because it is like Luther seemed like such a deserving person, such a kind person who just wanted to share his art, his heart.
Any Love remains my favorite song.
And the fact that he never seemed to find the love that he was looking for, and basically was like, I'll take any love, you know?
It is probably the only real autobiographical song.
I don't know the song, and I wanted to go check it out since we first watched this. And I think that this version is probably better than the full song, because when you start putting all those drums and all those other things, it might change it.
I like it with just the piano.
Yeah.
Everyone needs love, no doubt, any love.
But the documentary is called Luther Never Too Much. Why wasn't it like Here and Now or Any Love?
I don't know.
Especially when it's like, that is who I am. Right? Like, that's it. Any love. What's going on? It's not like, hey, I'm just happening to be searching for a Never Too Much and I come across a documentary. I know there's a Luther documentary, so name it appropriately.
Yeah. I mean, but it makes me sad because here's somebody singing about all this love that maybe had fleeting moments of feeling a little bit of love, but never really having it realized in a way that most people dream of, and that obviously that he dreamed of as well.
I think that because of the stigma back then, if he was gay,
We got to talk about this.
Yeah.
the thought of, quote, coming out, that he couldn't bear it.
Well, I guess I'll go first. Okay, so the question was always out there when Luther was alive and when he was singing as to what his sexual orientation was. And of course, the truth is it was really nobody's business but his.
There were people who have talked about his personal life.
But aside from that, it was a time where so much was going on. We heard earlier in the documentary how they were saying he'd lost the weight and they were trying to associate it with him possibly having AIDS or HIV. And because these are the kind of the outward things that would happen back then when somebody was stricken with the illness, right? And then it's like, okay, are you or are you not, gay and all of this? And so that was the whispers, that was the buzz that was out there, even in the general population, general public.
The idea of coming out publicly, was that something that you talked about at all?
We talked about it.
I remember seeing her, and she was a friend, Patti LaBelle was, to Luther during his life.
He did not want his mother to, although she might have known.
And I remember seeing, like, when she said this, I was thinking to myself, why did you say this?
But he wasn't going to come out and say this to the world.
Why did you say the quiet part out loud?
And he had a lot of lady fans, and he told me that he just didn't want to upset the world.
Now, what a lot of you may not know, because this right now is hugely controversial, and it's controversial because she says that she is heartbroken for being made the villain in Luther Vandross's documentary. Okay. Oh. So because of the way they juxtapose this, Richard Marx, who is a songwriter and he had some hits of his own back in the day in pop, he's the guy who also wrote Dance with My Father with Luther Vandross. He comes out and we see him say, some of the people who were supposed to be his friends were talking about his personal business. And then we see the clip of her, right? And so it does make it look like he's specifically talking about her. Maybe he wasn't. We know how documentaries can be edited. But the fact is that she did say this. She was asked a question, but she did say this. This was her answer. Right. And why was this her answer is the question I always had, even from way back then. The other part people may not know is that she says that she did an hour-long interview with them for this documentary, but she wanted to have to see the final cut of the documentary, and she, I guess, wanted to have the ability to take things out or whatever. They were like, no, screw it, we're just going to put your clip in, and they did not use her clip because she refused to sign under the terms of not seeing the final version.
Yeah, so she probably never got interviewed.
She said she did, so I don't know.
I guess if you make that...
I'm not interviewing you without you signing.
Yeah, you're going to sign this first.
So,
but a thing happened, I think that was just 2024. I think it was Madonna's little concert, tribute, something, I don't know, where she was doing some age tour, right? And he was included in that tribute.
To say that he had it. And that was what he died.
I think it was like a montage of people who passed away because of HIV, AIDS or something, whatever. And Luther Vandross was included. But then, they were like, the state came out and like, he was never diagnosed and stuff. And then I guess, I don't know if it was a tour or not. I thought it was some award show. So it could be a Mandela effect. But that happened. And then she, supposedly removed it from I guess she was touring or something. I don't know what it was.
She removed it. And the question is, like, did she know? Because I didn't see the actual clip of where she acknowledged or where it was put up. But did she actually say, like, how aware was she? I mean, clearly Madonna's not putting up the visuals for her tour. So is this what someone else put in there?
What I remember is that it was a bunch of people performing. And it was the tribute part, right? And you know how they show people's names and faces, right? That's part of things. So, like, you know how, like, in the Grammys, when people die at the end or whatever part, they're showing the tribute, they're showing the faces and their names. Mm-hmm. He was in there.
So we know mistakes can be made. We know that the person who's doing that could just be the intern. They're like, hey, put these pictures of these people. So when we roll it on the screen, so we don't really.
But somebody had to see it. Somebody approved it because it ain't just like one person put something in and then it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it could have been a mistake. It could have been they were trying to imply that. It could have been the truth. But here's what I think about Luther. I feel like, A, he never came out and publicly said that. He never came out and publicly said that he was gay. And it doesn't matter. Respect his life and what he wanted for his life and what he wanted to be out there. and leave that man alone even in his death. And okay, maybe Patti LaBelle just got to jaw janking a little bit too much because you were sitting on a gossip show jaw janking, because that is like one of those, that's the dude from the Housewives, Atlanta Housewives, and those other housewives shows. And so you're up there on a gossip show to begin with. Probably, I don't know, maybe he was over there trying to sell some Patti pies at the time. I don't know. All I know is that you might have just said the quiet part out loud, because look, if he was, and I say if because there's no proof to me that he was or wasn't. I don't know if he was, and I don't care if he was. But if he was, maybe it was something that the industry just knew and understood. And now you're taking industry business, or, you know what I mean, backroom business, and you're saying it to people who may have never had it confirmed. It could have been a mistake. But what she should have done is she should have taken the opportunity to clear it up in this. Then after that, instead of sitting there talking about how heartbroken you are that you were made to be the villain for this guy, take to your, just like you take to anything else, take to your Instagram, take to your social media, and just stand up and say it. Don't bring out because if I was in her shoes, and let's say you made a mistake, you know, and I would have come out and I would say, hey, look, I made a mistake. This was not what was intended. I hate the way that they edited this because they took something I said a long time ago. But here's the bottom line. He was my friend. I loved him. I knew things about him, and I should not have said what I said in that moment. I'm not saying it to confirm or anything about that. I shouldn't have said it. And that's the end of that. I loved him. I still love him. And boom, there you have it. But instead of all of the rest of this stuff that's going on, and then like looking for sympathy points, I'm heartbroken that I'm made to be. You said it, girl. You said it.
Well,
people don't get an opportunity to make you look bad unless you actually did say it. And we saw enough of the clip to see that someone asked you a question. If you didn't, I would have said, well, you know, he didn't confirm that. I'm not talking about this man's business. And let's move along, Andy. Because it's guaranteed if it was maybe about her own life or something that she feels is very sensitive, she might have concealed it more. But, you know, I don't blame her, because you know what? Speaking errors and things happen. If you are out in the public eye and you talk a lot, because goodness knows we have hours and hours of things we have said, things that we said incorrectly, misspoke, or were just wrong about. And there is never a moment where somebody is not there to fact check everything
supposedly,
being said.
In air quotes, fact check.
You know. So I get it. I feel it. But I just think you got to own it, suck it up, and keep it moving.
I wouldn't even address it. I would just say, mind your business. That's my response.
I think that's kind of a cop-out, though, in that position, because if it's like, hey, I made this autobiographical song, right? Then, oh, you putting it out. What are you talking about? When you're talking about my love and this and that, it's the same sort of thing. But I guess it's, if the question is specifically asked directly, then I don't owe any answers.
Well, but what about this? Does it matter if the love was a woman or a man?
Questions about my sexuality, well, I suppose just always be questions.
What we know is the autobiographical part.
In 2025,
I didn't find
it
love.
doesn't, right? But the back then, you just wouldn't say it because it reflected negatively on the person, right?
I will neither deny or confirm that any such rumor.
Sort of like the whole AIDS, HIV thing. It reflects negatively, so we can't say that this person had this because it's just some stigma attached. Sort of like with Eazy-E, right? Hey, he died of AIDS, but then everybody around him is like, no, that wasn't AIDS, because they're worried about the image of the person because there's this negative stigma attached to that. Yeah. I don't know who owes who what, and if it really does matter. But yeah, I don't know. If you, like I said, you're in the public, you're talking about these things, and well, that interest is going to be there. And I don't know what is inappropriate to ask. Because in 2025, is it inappropriate to ask, what's your orientation? That's like a thing.
I think it's a rude question, but I think that you can ask, and I think the person can decide they don't want to answer.
Cannot answer yet.
You know, and I think the same was true then. In my mind, I'm not talking about what public perception and all that. I'm just saying, to me,
what I owe you is my music, my talent, my best effort.
He said, the only thing I owe you is your music. You don't even owe us that. You didn't even owe us that. I think the word owe here
Oh, it was a bad
Nobody
choice,
is
yeah.
entitled, because then it puts on the other side of that entitled. I'm entitled to your music. If you owe me something, that means I'm entitled to it. If you owe me an answer about this, I'm entitled to the answer. We are not entitled to answers about people's personal business like that. It's nice if we know the context of the song or whatever, but even in that, we know he said he didn't find a love. Now, whether it was a man or a woman or both.
But it becomes deeper than why you didn't, right?
Maybe.
Because of all of this. If you gay,
Maybe.
you couldn't find the love because you can't come outward and express it.
It could be. It
Like
could
that's
be.
that's
It
very
could be.
powerful song, right? If I look at it in that
And
context.
then he talked about it being unrequited, right? So maybe it was difficulty because, you know, they didn't have the internet the way we have it now where, you know, people are hooking up from all over the world with all kinds of preferences and orientations and everything else, right? So maybe he didn't have the access to be able to do it, you know, and I can't help but feel like for people, if he was gay, for people who live in a time where they can't fully be themselves. And I would suggest that now is probably the best time in history to be able to try to be yourself, even though we still have a long way to go with
Right.
acceptance of people and their orientations and all of whatever differences. Because at the end of the day, like you're trying to force people to be somebody who they're not. And at the end of the day, we're all people. Why would you be this? Why would you be this way? Someone will inevitably say religion or what they believe or what
whatever,
God
yeah.
said and
Their
all that.
individual belief, yeah.
But I'm saying that at the core of any of these belief systems still is to treat people well, to treat people first as humans, regardless of what other labels you're going to place on them. And how folks are getting done is not right. If you enjoyed this snippet from our 3.5-hour watch party on Luther Never Too Much, you can watch the full video for free on the free tier of Axiom Amnesia's Patreon. Stay tuned for the details on how to join. I just wanted to jump in here to encourage you to join our free Patreon tier. Yes, we have premium paid memberships on Patreon and YouTube channel members who get exclusive content, early releases, and other perks, but we are now also offering a free Patreon membership tier where you will get videos that are not offered to the general public on YouTube. For example, we just dropped a 3.5-hour watch party for the new Luther Never Too Much documentary on our free tier where you get to watch the full movie along with us in our commentary. If you like what you see, you can join one of our paid membership tiers later, or you can just remain as a free member with no strings attached. This free Patreon membership does not give you access to all of the paid exclusive content and early releases that our premium Patreon and YouTube channel members enjoy, but we wanted a way to offer you a better viewing experience without many of the restrictions that we have on this platform. So come on over and join us on Patreon. The link is in the description. It's easy and free to join. You can simply log in with your Google or existing social media accounts and begin enjoying Axiom Amnesia's Patreon.
If you made it this far into this breakdown, go ahead and type stigma attached in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around to the end.
And be sure to check out one of the videos that's on the screen right now.